The House, as you know, on May 22nd, passed the spending bill by 215 to 214. Two Republicans voted against it, Massey and Davidson in the House. All Democrats voted against Trump's spending bill. Now, the Senate has it. There's a lot of trouble because conservative senators don't want this amount of spending. They don't want it too high. But if the bill fails, then automatically there are tax rises. We'll put them up on a full screen. I'll tell you for radio what it is. So the average individual tax, what you and I pay for working, will go up 2.5% automatically. But this is the most important thing. 50% of the deductions that we all file with the IRS go away, which rockets how much money Americans will pay to the government. That's not passed, it's nothing. That just kicks in if this bill goes down. If that happens, it'll likely a recession will follow. If the recession follows, then the Republicans will lose the midterm elections and Donald Trump will be doomed. So it's not just about spending. It's about holding power in America. Joining us now from Washington is a senator who does not like the bill. I said he might not vote for the bill, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. My positioning this in a fallacious, word of the day, way, Senator.
I think you have a pretty accurate assessment. I don't really disagree with it. And by the way, the bill as it goes, as far as it goes, I don't have too many problems with. The problem is it just simply doesn't go far enough. And if we do this as a one and done bill and we don't do anything further, and that's pretty much the indication we have, we're simply not addressing the massive long-term debt and deficit that, from my standpoint, is the biggest issue here. So let me just throw a couple numbers at you. Just put these things in perspective. In 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion. This year we'll spend over $7 trillion. That's a 58% increase. Next year, about 7.3. But here's the one that I've really been focusing on now. Average deficits over the last presidential terms. Obama came in, shot deficits up almost $1.3 trillion average in his first 4 years. But then the Tea Party, I'm part of that, came in. We put some restraint. That got knocked down to about $550 billion a year for his 4 years. Trump came in, had to do deal with Democrats. That went up to about $810 billion per year. Then you had COVID, a $3.1 trillion deficit, just a massive bipartisan spending spree. And responsible leadership would have realized, okay, that's an aberration. We got to return to pre-pandemic levels. We should have gotten down really below $5 trillion in spending and certainly below $1 trillion in deficits. It's not what happened. We kept spending at pandemic levels. Biden averaged deficits of $1.9 trillion. And if you look at the scoring of the big, beautiful bill right now, those deficits just continue to increase from about 2.2 trillion in the next 4 years up to about, I think, 2.9 trillion. That's off the top of my head. Again, we're not bending the deficit curve down. Now you can, I'm going to be issuing a report. I've been working on it over the weekend. We're doing different scenarios based on different growth scenarios. You literally have to get to about 4% growth before you start bending that deficit curve down, that trajectory down toward balance. 3%, that kind of flattens it out to averages about $2.1 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years. Again, I'm just not willing to accept that as new normal.
Okay. Now, what you just said, nobody understands.
I'm sorry about that.
It's all right.
But
it's impossible. It's impossible. No,
I know. That's
no average voter. So I'm a simple man, and I'm putting myself in your seat. I'm the senator. And here's my calculation. You're right. The federal government spending is wildly out of control. And the waste is phenomenal. And our system needs to be more disciplined. You're right. But we're in a crossroads in history here, where the Democratic Party doesn't want any spending cuts, maybe a little in defense, but they don't want any, okay? You know it, everybody knows it. They want to increase it. In fact, more. They don't even want supervision of Medicaid, which we'll do tomorrow. They don't want any reform. They hated Musk. They hate Doge. They don't want anything. That's where you start. The Republican Party is the party of responsibility now fiscally. But if the Republican Party gets its butt kicked in 26, it's over. And the gates open, and you'll have way more spending than you have now. Is that true?
You're right. Listen, it's easy to be
okay, wait, stop.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm right. Okay. So what Trump has done, and I know this because I have access to the president, he says, I know this bill jacks spending, but my tariffs are going to bring down the deficit and debt. And as you know, the recent report, in 1 month, the tariffs have cut the deficit in half. So Trump says, I'm going to get my trade deals. We don't know whether he will or not. Okay. And then all the money coming into the Treasury is going to bring this stuff down. So keep me in power with no tax rise, and that'll start to come down because of the money coming in. Is the president wrong?
Yes. I hate to say that, I'm a big supporter of the president, but right now the White House is putting out a memo saying that tariff revenue over the next 10 years will be about $2.8 trillion. Again, that compares to a $22 trillion deficit. And by the way, if you extend the taxes, they admit that the baseline goes up to about $25 trillion. So it might reduce the deficit by about 10%. Again, it's still not adequate, and the tariff revenue is very problematic. It's being tested in the court whether President Trump really has this executive power. If the courts decide he doesn't, and I think it, again, I'm not a legal scholar when it comes to this tariff law, but if they strike that down, I doubt that Congress is going to impose sweeping tariffs like that. So again, that revenue is very uncertain. And let me make a final point. I support President Trump because I want him to defeat the deep state. You don't defeat the deep state by continuing to fund it at President Biden's level. So for me, it's spending. We may disagree.
But if you hold firm, if you hold firm, Senator, and you vote against it, and others do, Republicans do, then it all blows up. If you vote for it, I think there's a big possibility that if the economy surges, that you'll have a much bigger majority going forward where you can revisit this whole thing without the razor-thin majority in the House and the Senate. Now, you can introduce new spending bills anytime you want to introduce them. And if you have the power of the party controlling the Senate and the House, you can revise this kind of thing. But if you have no power, then it's over. Last word.
Understand. So again, what I've been saying is I want a commitment to a reasonable pre-pandemic level and a process, a really strong, robust process to achieve and maintain it. Now that gives pretty wide latitude. Again, a one and done single bill in this Congress, and that's what I find unacceptable. I'm more than willing to work with the administration. What is that process? What can we do to make sure that we don't do a one and done bill? So again, the game, not a game. The process has just begun here in the Senate, and I'm just trying to make this a whole lot better.
All right, and that's your job.
Steps already. We would have already had cut out the border funding. We would have already extended current taxes, take that tax increase off the table. Had we done it my approach, President Trump decided one big beautiful bill. But again, if it's a one and done bill, we're really short changing ourselves here, and we're really blowing a historic opportunity. There's no guarantee we'll have the House, the Senate, and we'll have the presidency in 2027, but we can't count on having the majority in the other two chambers. So we've got to do it now.
I don't know, but do you have access to the president? He returns your calls and stuff, right? You're in dialogue with him, correct?
Correct. He's not real happy with
he wants what he wants when he wants it, but it's all negotiation. You know that. Are you optimistic in the end that you're going to get a bill that will pass and so that taxes will not rise? Are you optimistic there?
Yeah, we're not going to increase taxes. And by the way, I had to hold out on the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, too, because the bill delivered by the House is only going to cut taxes for 5% of American businesses. So I'm the guy that had to dig my heels in and say, hey, what about the 95% of American businesses that are pass-through entities? First of all, I had to educate my colleagues in terms of what a pass-through entity was. But again, I dug in. I got the snarly phone calls from the White House at 10 o'clock at night. But in the end, everybody thanked me for holding out. So again,
All right.
I'm trying to make this a whole lot better than what it is. Again,
When do you
saying that-
think the vote is your whole summer going to be ruined, or are you going to be able to vote fairly soon?
well, in order to get it right, getting before July 4th, we won't have it right. So this may
No, I
drag
know.
on. Again, we all want the same result. We don't want to increase. We want to fund the border. We want to take what spending reduction that the House has already pocketed and just do more. And again, have a process for starting to bend that deficit trajectory down, which this bill doesn't do, unfortunately.
All right, Senator, we really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk again soon, I hope. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.